Welcome to Doc Talk. I'm Mark Houston. What you're about to hear comes from a Heart Awareness Week conversation in Rapid City. It's a real, unscripted discussion led by Dr. Luis Hernandez, a cardiologist at the Monument Health Heart and Vascular Institute and the medical director of the Advanced Heart Failure Program. In this conversation, Dr. Hernandez sits down with a patient to talk openly about end-stage heart failure, transplant decisions, and the practical realities involved. You'll hear how age and timing factor in, how treatment plans are shaped, and what the process looks like from a patient's perspective. This conversation reflects the kind of meaningful, educational discussions at the heart of Doc Talk.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you for being here celebrating the Heart Failure Awareness Week. As I always tell everyone, everything that we have done is thank you to my team that is on this side. Can my team raise their hand? Let's give you an applause because we couldn't have accomplished what we accomplished without them. I have a couple of patients and I just want to introduce what things are new here in Rapid City. So we're going to talk a little bit of heart transplant, kidney transplant, not much about the kidneys though. But we're going to focus more on other things that we can do when the heart is failing, right? So what do we do when patients had what we called end-stage heart failure? What options do we have to offer? What things can we do here in Rapid? And Renee here with me. So let me say welcome to Renee. She's our, believe it or not, heart and kidney transplant. Okay? So apparently we have a couple minutes so we can have a lot of other people who want to be here in the front too.
Oh, good.
Good. So you want to tell us a little bit about your experience and you know what things we were able to do here and you know how you are now.
Okay. I started out in 2000. I came in here and I had a defibrillator pacemaker put in, and we did pretty good with that for quite a while. We worked on different things, different medicine management and stuff like that. And then I came in January of last year, and it was just down to the point that Dr. Hernandez, the first time I met him, he came in the room and goes, I think we're going to have to do a heart transplant. And I looked at my kids, I go, what do you say?
Sounds like my daily life when people see me so young, you know? But I have a lot of white hair, just saying.
So anyway, then that kind of started the program, and it just kind of different tests. I ended up having a ablation and stuff like that, and then that didn't really fix it. And so then we went in and did, the heart cath one Dr. Hernandez did for me and stuff, and he goes, we're going to have to do something here fairly soon. And so then they put me in the hospital, and that was end of April. And then in April, they transferred me to Minneapolis, and I went up there. And then I ended up rupturing a blood vein in my leg, and so I had a lot of problems with that. And so then my kids were there, and we talked about it a lot. They talked to me about the LVAD, they talked to me about a transplant and all the things and stuff. And so we kind of was ho-humming, kind of messing with my leg and stuff. Well, then my kids said, Mom, do you really want to do it here? It's a 13-hour drive up, 13-hour back every time you have to go in for an appointment. Or should we do it in Denver?
And your daughter lives in Denver, though?
I have a daughter, that lives in Colorado Springs, right 60 miles from Denver. So that kind of just made the plan. So then I came home, and end of June I went to Denver, and they did my orientation type thing. And then the 7th of July, on the 1st of July, my kidneys were failing really bad. And so I went down to Denver on the 1st of July, and they did had done all the other tests, and I qualified on the 7th of July for a heart and a kidney.
You forgot to tell people that you didn't want to go.
Oh, no.
And then you call us, and we tell you, Renee, you have to go.
Well, that's the bad part.
Oh, you have to tell the whole story.
And stuff. And so then we got down there, and everything was going good. So I went, okay, let's just let me out of here. I have to be within range. And so of getting a heart if it comes in. And so I went to my daughter's on the 11th of July. And by the 18th of July, my defibrillator was going off and going off and going off. And so we went back to Denver on the 18th. And by the 26th of July, I had a transplant. And it was on its last leg on the 25th there. I was going off a lot. So I was very pleased. I still, visiting with some of these that have had the transplants, I still feel like sometimes I wake up and go, am I dreaming or am I really awake? is this real life or what? It's like one of those pinch yourself moments. This man and Dr. Heilman, both here, that I've had for several years with Dr. Heilman, if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be here. I probably wouldn't have went. I didn't get the ultimatum, you're going, okay.
Yeah. We have to tell her you need to go. But, I think that is what people sometimes don't realize, right? People always think that you have to be dying to get a transplant, right? Ideally, we want to send people before you're dying. We don't want to send you when you're too sick. You want to be as good as possible so you can have the option to get a transplant. Right? If you're too sick, then the options of getting either a transplant or a heart pump is hard, right?
Yeah. And one of the things, too, that I had in my corner that I heard about a lot is, you're old. You're old. I don't know if we should be doing this. You're old. And I'm going, wait a minute here. I'm starting to get a complex.
Yeah. And that's another thing, too. That's a misconception, right? So people think that if you are 65 or 61, you're too old. So
70.
70, exactly. So the most programs will do 70. Minneapolis does 72, for example. So every program is different. There is a lot of things that you need to take into account if you need a transplant, right? Social support, right? You have an amazing family, which was easy to help. I know all the daughters by now.
Yeah.
I know one is a pharmacist, You see, I remember. Yeah. And then one in Denver. Because the pharmacist is not the one in Denver. That one there.
Yeah. She's in Gillette, and the one in Denver is a NICU.
I remember. So
this one's a CNA.
Yeah, so part of our job as a heart failure team, is to figure out your life so we can understand your lifestyle, so we can see how we can help. So I think that's important. Drugs, we talk about drugs,
Yes.
You cannot be doing drugs and able to get a transplant or a heart pump. Heart pump is a little bit different, but drugs are bad regardless, okay? I don't have to enter in details about that. But yeah, I'm happy to know that you are better.
Oh, yeah.
Like
I said, every now and then I don't know, you just get this weird feeling like, is this real? And stuff. And I've totally enjoyed the extra time now and hope to have a bunch more with my grandkids. My grandson, Heidi's boy that's 12, when I was in Denver, I went there, like I said, the 1st of July, and I got out the 5th of August, but I had to stay in Denver and stuff, and they gave me it's called a Brent's Place, kind of like a Ronald McDonald House that I went to, and he came down and he says to me, he goes, Nana, when are you coming home? And I go, I don't know when I'm going to get to come home and stuff. And he says, well, I says, before too long, I hope. And he goes, well, then why did you get an apartment? Because I have to stay for a while. And then his mom came back with me. I came home in September. In October, I went back for my appointment, and he goes, oh, no, you're going back? I said, just overnight. I says, a couple days, I'll be back. Not 43 years like you were the last time? I go, nope, it wasn't 43 years, but I guess that's what it was to a 12-year-old. So, yeah, family support is a really big thing.
Yeah.
What types of medications or recommend did you have to change after getting your treatment?
I had a whole list of heart meds that all of them went out the door and stuff. And like my defibrillator, I no longer have that. But I went from a whole lot of heart meds to a whole lot of
immunosuppression.
Yeah, thank you. Drugs and stuff. The quantity I don't know changed. I just went from one to a different kind, and a lot of it down there and stuff, they didn't quite understand they'd come in about every other day and go, well, we got to talk to you about your medications. And I'm going, okay. And so they go, well, you're going to take this and this, and go down through them and stuff. And I go, and you got to take them on time. And I go, I've had a defibrillator since 2000. This is nothing new as far as taking my meds. But you are on a lot of different ones instead of heart meds, and a lot of them I'll be on for life.
Yeah, that is important, though. Regardless of before the transplant, right? And I always tell this to everyone. Yes, there's a lot of pills. I cannot say that I understand because I don't take them, right? But we do know those pills works. And the idea of taking this bunch of pills is that we know they all work together, and we know that they make the heart stronger. And, my patients, most of them will say, yeah, I don't want to take this bunch of pills. And then I will tell them, well, if you ended up getting a transplant, probably the quantity will not change. It's actually more pills because there's some pills that only come in 0.5. So you have to do like 8 pills to put to form 4, So it is important that if we can prevent, if we can get the heart stronger with medicine, that's always the goal. That's ours to go to the highest dose your body let us go. Monitor your kidney function, even though the heart is the most important organ.
Yeah,
Just saying. But yes, it's just a journey.
it is. I was quite surprised, and I don't know how many of you people know it or not. And when you get a kidney transplant, they just put a new kidney in, and you still keep the other two that you have, your native kidneys. And I was floored when the kidney surgeon came in because I went, so I'll have 3? And he goes, yeah. But he explained it as hamburger and French fries. He says, we're just the French fries. And he says, your heart's the hamburger and stuff and all of this. And so then I says, can I have a large drink with that? He goes, yeah, I guess, because you're going to have 3 kidneys to process it.
Any more questions?
Can you tell more about your experience and how long that is? Because some patients do ask a lot in our clinics, how long will I have to live there?
When I went down, like I said, on the 1st of July, I had some blood tests done, and that was when we found out my kidney was like up to 3.5 or something. And so they go, we want you to come down here right now. Well, I had been there first part of June to do my paperwork to see if I even would qualify, because then it goes before a board. Well, then they approved that on the 7th. And so, but whenever you get approved and if you start having complications, then you have to go. And you can wait. I had people down there that scared me to death. And I thought of him because they were there 6 months already and still didn't have a transplant. I'm just going, I don't know if I could do this place. So that varies on how soon they can find the transplant, what condition your heart or kidneys are in or whatever, what they need and stuff. I didn't think of it as being as serious as the stuff, but then when my defibrillator kept going off, I went from doing that on a Friday to the next Saturday having surgery. So I must have went up the scale somewhere. Well, then once you do that, and then they're usually in the hospital 12 to 15 days. And I stayed for 9 and got out. And they have a place down in Denver. It's called Brent's Place, kind of like a Ronald McDonald. And I went across. It's just right across the street from the hospital. And I went and stayed there till the 24th of September. So about 2 months and stuff like that. And they wanted me to stay for another month. And I said, oh, no, we're not doing that. They had run the tests. I'd had all positive on my biopsies and stuff, everything. There was nothing negative, anything there. And they said, because the only thing I didn't have any appointments. I've been sitting there doing therapy on my hand. And I went, no, I can go home and do therapy. And so I went home a month early. But most of the time they try to, I guess it probably depends on how far away, because they have patients that come. I know one of the gals that was down there, she was from New Mexico. I've come quite a ways, so they may make those wait longer. And if I hadn't got out then and got to go home, I'd have got out and went to my daughter's in Colorado Springs for that month anyway. Yeah, it's usually around 3 months that they like to keep you there. And because your first month, it's every 2 weeks. Then it kind of goes 3 weeks, and then you get up to the 2 months, and then it starts going every month. So it gets a little further apart, which makes sense to go home. To me, it made sense to go home. I'm going, I don't have any complications. And if I'd had any complications, I'd probably thought different about it. But there hadn't been absolutely anything. And now I go once a month for 7 months. And that's done this month. And then I go back in 2 months. And then I'm supposed to go back in 2 months. And that ends up to be June. And then they wanted me to come in July for my 1-year appointment. Well, they went back and they're going to do an angiogram on my 11th month. And then I don't go till the 14th, the 18th, and then it'll be every 6 months.
Yeah. So you have to keep in mind that the time that you're going to spend in the center will depend on what they do, right? If you have no complications, if it's a heart transplant versus a heart pump. So it depends. There's a lot of depends. Your transplant came very quickly.
It did, yeah.
It is probably the change in the status when you get a lot of shocks. So it depends on that, right? But you can be waiting there. It depends. Depends if you're tall, if you're taller, or if you're smaller, you had higher chances of spending long waiting periods, because if you're smaller, you're basically competing with kids, If you're so tall, not everyone is tall enough to have a big heart to keep with your pumping. So there's a lot of things. If you're a blood type O versus a blood type A or B, you're a B, right?
I'm
B
a
positive.
B positive.
I remember, yes. So that's the reason it's easy.
Be positive.
So if you're a B, or A, so, there are a little bit more options, because unfortunately O can give it to everyone. So all had to compete with the rest of the people. So there's a lot of, reasons why people can be longer time.
Yeah. And like with mine, I was very lucky because they found this patient where I could get the heart and the kidney because it had to come from the same patient and stuff. And so I ended up very lucky getting the heart really early and then and what I was told 4 weeks after I was in and was going back once a week or 2 weeks or whatever and see him, I stopped up at the cardiologist unit, was talking with him. And one of the doctors told me, he says, you know how close you came to not getting a kidney? I go, why would we do that, And he says, once they put the heart in on Saturday, the kidney was doing so well, they debated not putting it in the next day. Because I had one Saturday morning and then the other one was Sunday morning, the kidney was. He says, you came about this close of not getting a kidney. And so.
Yeah, and the problem now with the kidney now is allocation just changed. So there's a lot of new rules for that, which we're not going to get into details about that.
We're not going to do that.
That's a big rules now. Okay, any more questions? Oh, yes. The picture, I want to have a t-shirt because I was trying to be nice today, So we decided to put that in the back of our pictures. Can my team show their back so they know where it is, what t-shirt we're talking about? Look at there. So Ron, our nurse educator in the hospital, his kid did how he thinks the heart looks. And that's the picture of how he thinks the heart looks. So that's the picture in the back of the shirts that represent how the heart looks. Oh. So kind of like, it has the idea, there's 2 chambers in the top and 2 chambers in the bottom. So we decided to be our this year picture in the back of our shirt.